Presenting now is Praise Ajayi from the Mountaintop University. Praise Ajayi is a young, excellence-driven scholar and researcher with research interests in gender studies, Nigerian popular music, ethnomusicology, and global theoretical studies. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Music from Lagos State University and currently pursues an MA in ethnomusicology at the Mountaintop University. In addition to being a scholar, she is a music educator and a performer. She performs in choral groups and plays the violin in orchestras as well as in solo performances. Please welcome Praise Ajayi for her presentation titled Gender Representation, Exploring the Role of Women in Nigerian Art Music in the 21st Century.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so I would be contributing to this discourse on African art music, legacy, influence, and future directions by exploring the involvement, the roles of women in Nigerian art music. Yesterday, Miss Modupe Ige asked us where are the women, right? Yeah, well, today I will be taking a closer look at the involvement of Nigerian women in arts music, whether their roles extend beyond performance into actual composition of art music, especially in the 21st century, with an aim to highlight ways women have asserted their agency in Nigerian art music space and beyond. Please, can my slide be? Despite the significant underrepresentation and limited visibility of Nigerian female art music composers, the 21st century has witnessed the exceptional contributions of young women who are actively propagating their works, creating their own visibility, and asserting their agency in artistic and scholarly spaces. Today, I will focus on Grace Ofoka. Grace Ofoka is a composer, a vocal coach, music therapist, and music educator. After studying music at the Federal College of Education, Oshela Abeokuta, she immersed herself in compositions within the art music lens. Over the past few years, she has commissioned her works through international commissions and premieres from various continents, including Europe, the United States, South Africa, and Nigeria. Okay, so there's no slide. All right. Now, speaking of contributions and how Ofoka has asserted her agency in a broader art music space, our works have been included in academic and musicological discourses of these universities where they have been commissioned. Grace explores Igbo music and culture through a lens, utilizing stories from the Igbo ethnic group and drawing inspiration from works by composers such as Joshua Uzoigwe and Sam Ojukwu. Through thematic repetitions, call and response patterns, and the integration of indigenous sounds in our music germane to Igbo community, a dominant presence is evident in our composition. Professor Terry, who commissioned, a bassoonist who actually commissioned some of our works, claims that our compositional style does not conform to conventional European compositional predictability, even with its simplicity. A composition style that is actually rich in Africanness. Now, yesterday we were talking about where are the women, and we can see an example of a woman who is actually shifting the paradigm of women's story in Nigerian art music space. A number of our compositions have been commissioned through international collaborations with universities and foundations such as Chicago Symphony Orchestra, University of Iowa, Akojokpo, Chamber Music of Nigeria, etc. But the question really is, why is there still largely an underrepresentation of women in arts music? I kind of traced it down to the music education structure in Nigeria. And speaking of this, I would like us to draw our attention to the fact that Ofoka's compositional journey did not start in school, even though she read music in school. In my conversations with her, she hinted that sometimes the schools are the problem and mentioned that composition as a specialization, while some universities offer it, some do not. And she addresses the imbalances in the educational system of Nigeria, where composition is not really taken seriously by female students. And in addition to that, I had a few conversations with some Nigerian music students who were students or are currently students, and they shared similar observation. Hence, I argue that the underrepresentation of women is actually a replication of male dominance in Western music paradigm. Now, let us take a look further at the structure of music education in Nigeria. Based on the NUC, now the NUC, like some of us might know, some of us might not, but the NUC is the National University Commission, right? Yes. Based on their benchmark, history of Western music is actually a compulsory course that explores the evolution of art music across all periods. And if you would agree with me, all composers that were discussed in all of these periods, medieval, Renaissance, Baroque, and all, were all male composers. Buck Alder, 2019, added that before the 19th century, women were scarcely permitted to study music composition, perform in orchestras, or publish their compositions. Now, can we now see a replication of that? So I linked this idea with Bourdieu's habitus, and I said that the transgenerational perpetuation of this disposition actually corresponds with Bourdieu's concept of habitus, a concept that describes how social structures are absorbed by individuals, thereby influencing their everyday actions, choices, and preferences subconsciously. So, in the same vein, the observed apathy or lack of inclination for composition among female students in Nigeria is not necessarily a conscious disinterest, but rather a manifestation of these ingrained habitus. And the consistent historical exposure to male composers as predominant figures in art music, particularly through curriculum, emphasizing women music history, has unconsciously shaped their disposition, leading them to gravitate towards performance and other specializations, while the part of composition remains less explored or even less conceivable as a primary pursuit. This means that the perception of composition as a largely main domain has been implicitly written into their understanding of music, making it seem natural, almost unstated preference for others, rather than a conscious choice for themselves. Which is why the few women who now decide to do composition are now being addressed as transgressors. Now, what are now the future direction? Given that male composers have historically dominated Western music and are largely the sole focus in Nigerian tertiary music curricula, to what extent does this ingrained pedagogical structure unconsciously steer female students away from composition? And what radical curriculum shifts are necessary to dismantle these inherited habitus and ignite a new generation of female Nigerian art music composers? Also, if the current underrepresentation of Nigerian women in art music composition is a result of limited visibility and documentation, how can tertiary institutions actively reverse this trend by establishing consistent, dedicated commissioning programs for new works by female Nigerian composers? Just like in the case of Grace Ofoka, many of her works are not even being commissioned in universities. Rather, she seeks commissioning from, the international space, right? So if this is happening, it means she's really not getting commissioning in Nigerian space. So how do we now dismantle this idea? How can universities in Nigeria, have dedicated commissioning programs for new works? And lastly, considering the powerful influence of habitus on an individual's career aspiration, what fundamental and disruptive changes must occur within Nigeria's music education system to consciously foster a new collective understanding where female participation and excellence in art music composition are not just acknowledged, but are actually expected and celebrated. You know, yesterday, Ms. Modupe made an example of someone who wanted to do composition, and she was being asked that, what are you looking for? So how can we actually disrupt this system and ensure that, yes, composition from female composers are actually acknowledged within Nigerian musical identity? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, luckily we have 6 minutes extra plus 10 minutes, making 16 minutes for Q&A discussion. So, friends and colleagues, if you have questions or you have things you want to tell the presenter, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, mine is not a question per se. You talked about Western music history being important in
Compulsory.
yes, compulsory, and it's true. And even in secondary school, at secondary school level, WAEC syllabus has history. There's a way they put it: history and literature of Western music. All right. So, but there is one woman who always make the list. That's Clara Schumann. I think I've always seen that name, just to point that out.
Okay. I'm not
Okay.
actually saying there are no women. I'm saying there are more.
Oh, okay. I thought I heard you say, that they are all. I just
Okay.
remember that one from.
But
top of my
actually,
head.
majority of them are actually male composers. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your presentation. So you stirred a question in me, but I want to start this way. So it's amazing that it is through a woman that we are now knowing that women are labeled transgressors for positioning themselves in art music composition. That given, who named women transgressors? Is the gender not a female? Thank you.
All right. The reason I added this was because we had a presentation yesterday that spoke about women being transgressors in Nigerian art music composition. So I am not really addressing them as transgressors. I'm saying, why should they be called transgressors when we actually see women in the Nigerian art music space who are actually, putting forth their works? Why then should they be addressed as transgressors? So I don't know if you were present yesterday, but okay, it's like an answer to yesterday's presentation, like, where are the women? And it further talked about them being transgressors. Maybe we make a research.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for your presentation. I like the fact that you took it from, the lacuna being from the, educational structure and women tending more towards performance. Yes. I think there are other deep issues here. Why women are, decide to tend towards certain kinds of, choices in performance. The truth also from history, which you have very, clearly mentioned, is that, Western history, they were not even allowed to be seen in the church and all of those. Yeah. So we could always trace it there. But back to when you said that, why are universities not commissioning women's work? I think a lot was said yesterday that, if these works are viable, are put forward, why wouldn't they be commissioned? I don't think it would be because of the gender difference. And this just, what I think. Sure. I also do think that in many sense, in Nigeria, which university really commissions work?
Exactly my point. Because I made a case for Grace. During my conversations with her, I asked her, have your works been commissioned in Nigerian university? And she said no. So how then is she getting collaborations in other universities? So I think there's a system that allows, okay, bring your work, let's commission your work. Yesterday, one of our online participants said their foundation is actually, putting out a call for women's work. So how can we also have that? That's what I'm talking about. How can we also have that system in Nigerian universities? We're not even restricted to women's work, right? But how can we also have that? That it does not have to be like when you have done composition as a specialization, that you can actually have your works being performed. So it's like a question. That's what I'm saying. So do you understand me?
Very good presentation. I just want to say this. This is why we need collaboration. It's very essential because I know some departments who are not called music department, they study works of musicians, like feminine, masculine artists are classified. So I know you may want to consider reducing the number in terms of spread of your title. It looks so big to me when I listen to
it's actually
you.
a case of
wait.
yeah, sorry.
You said women in Nigeria. And I was asking myself, your scope, are you looking at southwestern Nigerian female artists? Or are you looking at general women in Nigeria? So I ask the question, southwest, west, south, or where? But if you look at the other point you raised, which is very vital and key to your work, is that there is need for commissioning their work. She rightly said, no university does that. But true, researches of works of artists, as seen in some department, who are not really department of music in universities, works of artists, musicians are studied. And once they are studied, people get to read about them and their works are known. So if you're looking at that and you're able to reduce your scope, I know you will get more data that can advance the logic you're reasoning. My point.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you very much, madam. Two things I would like to say. First, I think the whole gender issues, women representation, not just in music. I think if you think largely, whether you're talking about politics or you're talking about anything else, there's always been that problem, and not just in Africa, around the world. I think this is just one of this historical inequality in representation that we have. So it's probably not just it's not peculiar to Nigeria or Africa. So it's larger. So from the point of approach, I think we have to look at how other countries have approached it. So for example, in the US, they have affirmative action for any kind of description of anybody that has been marginalized before, to try and see how those inequities can be redressed. In South Africa, there's the whole BEE thing. So that is something right from the point of policy. Okay, and why am I thinking like that? Because, and I think this may also address some of the papers I heard yesterday, that there is, beyond the art itself, there is what I would like to describe as cultural thinking. And basically it's really about how, I would say, the average way that people in the culture are thinking, what they value. I think nobody spends on anything, whether money or material, on anything that they don't consider as value. And I think as musicians and as artists, sometimes we think what we are considering as value in our cultural product is of value to everybody else. And we are thinking, oh, this should be, I mean, like the bros that presented yesterday that talked about community thing. Without a culture that places value on that product, no matter how much you think it is good, they won't go for it. So I think part of what we need to be looking at as artists is how do we articulate and actually bring out the value in what we are doing, not just that people must buy it. You understand? The glasses you're wearing now, because it's of value to you, if it's 20,000 naira, you look for the money. But as good as it is, if it is 500 naira, if you don't value it, you will see it as not needed. So my point in this is that we sometimes have to look beyond the cultural product that we're trying to promote or the idea and go larger into the culture, into society, and see, does this thing really have value to them, to the average person, whether it's classical music, pop music, and see if we can begin to engineer solutions from there. That's my point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, that was a great point from the last speaker. But despite all that, women are still marginalized. And I think that's the purpose of these presentations. Yeah, there's the issue of artists. And when we use artists, I get a little bit confused because it then generalizes. We are within the context of art music, which is already elitist, right? It's elitist. And at times, the more elite you are, the better you are a composer in places where art music is practiced. So what I'm trying to say is that we should see the specific context in which these presentations about art music, as a composer, you are not necessarily trying to satisfy many people. You're not playing to the gallery. You don't want to be an Afrobeats musician. You don't want to be even Fela Kuti. You are writing for an elite. Let's face it, art music is elitist. It's elitist. And we chose to do it, right? So because of that, despite all the issues, we should make our works popular to people, put more value, which are very valued. But then women are still marginalized, when compared with men. So that's what I'm trying to say. I totally agree with all the points, that, let's try to put value in what we're doing, but let's also contextualize the concept of value within the narrow elitist field within art music is located, so that we can not overgeneralize. Artists, when we say artists, then Fuji musician, Aquala, Afrobeat, whereas those ones don't have problem of advertising themselves because they do what people do. But we decided not to do that one, to do art music, which is very elitist. So everything has to be contextualized within that narrow space in which we are operating. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much. Please, I think we have a question online. Can we have Dr. Laurent, please?
Yeah, thank you. I was just thinking from the other end of the whole issue, as in looking at composition as product. Is there any point we've gotten to where we think we listen to a piece or we look at a score and say this score is feminine or masculine? Let's get out of music. In academia, we subject a lot of our output to peer-reviewed systems, even composition. And are we at any point where this peer review system separate masculine work from feminine work, you know. So, and when we say women are being marginalized in this field of composition and fame, who is actually marginalizing them? Are they actually writing? I mean, you go out there, even if you want to shop for scores, you don't see whether the piece is written by a woman with quality. The content, So if we don't have a lot of women writing in Nigeria, then it's their business. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not chauvinistic. Um, I just had a recent experience with European recording project, and where people were evaluated based on the continent. And I looked at Africa. I was lucky, I made it to the last 25%, and I discovered that I was the only Nigerian. We had about 6 South African, somebody from Zimbabwe, and so on. It was the South African that topped the list. And I called attention of fellow Nigerians. I look at even the statistics. We had about 20 or 30 submissions from Africa, and I was the only Nigerian. I mean, I won't come out with we're marginalized. So at the last 25%, it's just statistical. You don't expect to see more than one. So the onus is on us to talk to ourselves and let's get into that space. Because it's sounding to me like, there's a deliberate effort to suppress women. I don't think so. I might be wrong. Just my thought. Thank you very much.
Okay. Let's just take one more, and this one is just the top on it because we need to move to the next one. Time is. Let's make it brief. Sir.
Thank you so much. This comes to some of the things I raised yesterday. We need to create a niche for ourselves. Go out of the box. Do it. Our own local community, someone will see it and pick it up. And women generally, I know they have that influence. Can penetrate place out, and I can tell you it will be taken. Thank you.
So I'm feeling very uncomfortable now. When you are blaming the victim, women are marginalized. It's a structural thing. It's even in the US, there are fewer women composers than male composers. Women are marginalized institutionally. So when you now say, yeah, you should go out there and you are not doing enough, it's like you are saying blacks are marginalized, and so it's because the blacks are not doing enough. No, this is structural and institutional marginalization. That does not mean that women should do more work, but to just dismiss that with a wave of the hand, no, I feel uncomfortable. You don't blame the victim. Women are marginalized. Thank you.
Sorry, sir. The political aspect is also there. The political reasoning and our own mind thought as composers are there. So I think all joined we can advance from there.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Praise. Thank you. Of course, the engagement continues. Please, you can see praise. You can see praise for further engagement, please. Next, thank you.